The Remsen Cemetery is a private burial ground located in Rego Park, Queens, New York. This may surprise locals of Middle Village and Forest Hills, but there is actually a 3-block stretch of Metropolitan Avenue between Woodhaven Boulevard and Trotting Course Lane, which is in Rego Park, which borders both Middle Village and Forest Hills. It is in a residential neighbourhood right on Trotting Course Lane that we find the Remsen Cemetery. It is quite possible that if you were walking from Woodhaven Boulevard, you might just miss the cemetery if you did not know it was there. The Remsen family immigrated from northern Germany in the 17th century under the head of the family, Remsen van der Beek. His sons took on the westernized Remsen surname from the name Rem Jansen. One of these sons, Abraham, settled near Hempstead Swamp, which is now known as Middle Village. He helped clear the swamp around 1712 and subsequently built an estate there. These are the grounds that we are now stood upon, the former home of the Remsen family estate. In 1652, the area was known as Newtown, and one of the sections of Newtown, which is where we are currently standing, was known as Whitepot. This particular area was called Whitepot from 1652 until 1906, when the area was renamed Forest Hills due to its high elevation. I'm not quite sure how Rego Park was zoned all the way south down here. Anyway, the Remsen Family Cemetery is the only remaining remnant of the town of Whitepot. The grandson of Abraham Remsen, Jeromus Remsen Jr., was a colonel in the Revolutionary War. He was sent by George Washington to join the brigade of Nathaniel Greene during the Battle of Long Island against the British. Jeromus Remsen Jr. died in 1790, and he is buried in this cemetery. His wife Anna, who died in 1816, is also buried here. They are joined by 4 of their children, and also buried in this cemetery are the brother of Jeromus Remsen Jr., Major Abraham Remsen, who also served in the Revolutionary War. And the last remaining Remsen, who is known to be buried here, is a Bridget Remsen, whose connection as a Remsen family member is unknown. The actual graves of the family members are the Brownstone Headstones, some of which are still standing and date to between 1790 and 1819, and some of which that are by now almost completely buried. 2 of these brown headstones are actually behind the soldiers, but they are very difficult to spot due to the overgrowth in the background. The white headstones were added in the early 20th century by the Veterans Administration, and these are commemorative military gravestones. 2 of these gravestones were for Colonel Remsen and Major Remsen, and the other 2 commemorative headstones were added for 2 of their cousins, Ort and Luke Ramsen, who also both served in the Revolutionary War. It is unknown whether the latter 2 brothers are also buried in this cemetery. The 2 doughboy soldiers were further added to the cemetery after the First World War to honour the members of the local community who fought in that war, along with the American flagpole. Realistically, the memorial was not a part of the cemetery, rather it is an addition built upon the cemetery. The Remsen family estate was demolished in 1925 and residential developments were built upon the surrounding land. Yet the cemetery survived throughout these developments. It was not until some 10 years later, in 1935, when residents of the neighbourhood took it upon themselves to try and beautify the cemetery. However, by the end of the 20th century, the cemetery was a rundown shell of what it once was. In 1978, the American Legion took over care of the site, along with a local historical society. And by 2008, the cemetery was now in control of the New York City Parks Department. The plan by New York City Parks is to build a 4-foot-high fence surrounding the cemetery, and let us hope that they also employ a gardener to service the land as well. The Remsen Family Cemetery, located in Rego Park, Queens, New York.